YOLO! What does Abraham Lincoln, Adolf Hitler, Socrates, and Jesus Christ all have in common? If you guessed that 70% of their body is water, you would be correct. It is estimated that roughly 70% of the human body is water. And yet this brings up the age-old question. The question that philosophers have pondered for centuries, that I'm sure every friend group chat has argued over at one point or another. I know mine has about a year ago, and it was the memory of that argument that brought about this video. And that question is water wet? Now, to understand if water is wet or not, and to make sense of this seemingly nonsensical situation, we must first understand what water actually is. Water is an inorganic compound with the chemical formula H2O, consisting of 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. This is going to be very important for later in the argument, so don't forget. Furthermore, according to Google, it is a transparent, tasteless, odorless, and nearly colorless substance that is vital for all known forms of life. The tasteless part is complete, utter garbage. Water snobs like myself can tell the difference in taste of water. But we're going to ignore that because science is sometimes full of a bunch of nerds that have never touched grass. So if they haven't touched grass, they probably don't drink water either. Moving on. Water comes in 3 forms: a solid, a liquid, and a gas. Ice, vapor, and liquid water that we all know. Now this brings forth the first splitting of hairs in the argument of whether water is wet or not. Is water in each of its states still water, or is being in a different state other than the liquid form of water no longer viable for the argument? Ergo, ice is a solid. It can't really be wet. Otherwise it just disintegrates and melts into liquid water. And at that point, you're just melting ice. Vapor, is vapor, the steam, the mist, the clouds, capable of being wet? Or no, because it doesn't have its own physical structure. However, when enough water vapor condenses, it then becomes storm clouds which produce rain. Thus, at least part of the cloud is turning from vapor to liquid. So is it, in essence, liquefying itself, making itself wet? We know one of the properties of water is that it makes other things wet. But can it make itself wet? Now, my friend had made an interesting point, which was the Titanic. What did it hit? It didn't hit a coral reef. It didn't hit a giant rock. It hit a giant block of ice. An iceberg. And what was the iceberg doing? Floating in the ocean. And the ocean is liquid water. So if the ice didn't melt and was able to stay in its solid state form while touching H2O, the liquid form of water, then we were able to deduce that the solid form of water, being ice, can in fact get wet. So that is a workaround for how water can make a different form of water wet. For vapor, we tossed and turned on that one and ended up having a hung jury. But it really boiled down to, pun intended, water itself. Can water make water wet? Now there are differences in salinity when it comes to water. Salt water and fresh water. Then there are differences in polluted water or clean water, mountain water or spring water. There are so many different variations and varieties of water that we eventually had to just cap it at a generic liquid water. We could not account for all the different variables. This isn't our full-time day job after all. My friends and I, in the pursuit of enlightenment, understanding, truth, knowledge, a higher cognitive plane for understanding water, needed to know, when it comes to water, does a single drop of water by itself count as water? Or does it need to coalesce with other like-minded droplets of water to form a larger puddle or pool of water? Is a single drop of water equal to an entire bucket of water? Dropping a single drop of water into a bucket of water, are they separate? One bucket of water and one drop? Or is it trillions of little droplets of water, tiny pieces of condensation, all with their own H2O origins, existing simultaneously next to one another, but not intermingling. Well, we had to think about the water experiment, hot and cold water. If you have very cold water and very hot water, and they're in the same general area, they will actually migrate opposite of one another. The cold water is more dense and will sink to the bottom, whereas the hot water will expand and rise to the top. Now, you may be like, oh, that's thermodynamics and that's just heat expansion, but it has a point. These different waters at different temperatures had their molecules agitated in a way that allowed them to move through one another, passing by each other, but not becoming one with each other. The water didn't instantly just become medium temperature water. No. What happened was the cold sank, the warm rose, and the middle ground became slightly medium warm until it all balanced out. This tells us something very important. Water can be a different temperature, can be a different density, a different state, while still being liquid H2O. And if there are still liquid H2O, but they can be in different states and move through and amongst one another, then water can be separate on an individual drop layer. And on the individual drop layer, if water can be separate and still connect and or move through other forms of water, other drops if you will, then it is possible that water could touch water. And if water could touch water, knowing that one of the properties of water is to make something wet, then we were able to deduce that water can make water wet if water has more water in its water. But if water is only one singular drop, one small piece of water, disconnected, separated, and shunned from all the rest of the water, then it would have to be considered dry. So water in the singular is dry, but water in the plural can always be wet. It can never be dry, unless you individually take a dropper and remove each drop of water, which contains its own H2O origins, to form dry water. And we completely ignored dry ice or plasma or any of the other more confounding things for the sake of this argument. But the council had argued, spoken, shared their points, made their part, and come to the conclusion: water in the singular is always dry. Water in the plural is always wet. Under the right conditions, water can make water wet. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns about the wetness and state of water, leave them in the comments below, and I will do my best to answer them. Now, I'm no waterologist, but I know a thing or two about water. I'm 70% water, and I drink water on the daily. And since I've said water so many times in this video, you should probably go drink a glass of water right now, because odds are you're probably a little dehydrated. You're a beautiful flower, and you need some nourishment. Take care of yourself. But thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the flip side.